Natco. In fact, we have Vishal Manchanda, who is the Pharma Analyst at Systematix Group, joining in to discuss this and more. Vishal, hi, welcome to the show. Well, what did you think about the guidance provided from Natco in terms of, FY25, 15 to 20% growth in terms of revenue, profit growth of around 20% plus?
Yeah, good afternoon, Ekta. So I think the guidance would broadly be in line what the street would be expecting from Natco, because as we know, there is a market share ramp up that they're expecting in Revlimid in the US in FY25. So as per the settlement terms that Natco has with the innovator, they can keep ramping up market share in Revlimid every year until they reach 33% in the final year, which is FY26. So potentially they can reach to a market share of about 22% in FY25. And I think their market share this year should be around low to mid teens. That's my estimate. So with that kind of a ramp up in Revlimid, 15-20% growth is something we can always look forward to. Potentially they can surprise to on this estimate. And again, the profitability growth should be even higher with the top line growth at 20%. The profit growth can be even higher for them. The question is whether they can kind of replace the Revlimid opportunity with other launches. So Wegovy is one, but the patent expiry of Wegovy is not very clear when the patent expires. So there's a patent that expires in 2026 and there's a patent that expires in 2031. So the litigation would decide eventually when generics for Wegovy enter. So there's a lot of ifs and buts in Natco going forward, how things will shape in the longer term.
Okay. That's exactly what I wanted to discuss. Wegovy FTF, first to file for Natco. How much of an opportunity do you think it is?
So Wegovy is a very large drug. I'm not sure the peaks, but it's $5 billion plus. Around $5 billion is the peaks, is the current sales of Wegovy, and it continues to ramp up every year. So a very large drug. It's a GLP-1, and that's where there is a lot of enthusiasm across the world. GLP-1s are going to become $100 billion plus category is what the analysts are expecting. So obviously by 2031 or 2026, this would even be a larger drug when generics can enter.
Where do you stand? Go ahead.
Yeah, so a lot of money to be made here eventually, and the first to file will obviously will make a lot of money here whenever the opportunity monetizes.
Okay, and let's move on from Natco and speak about Aurobindo Pharma as well, Vishal. Where do you stand on this? Because the street is split right down the middle. There are a couple of brokerages which are, bulls. We have Bank of America, we have Goldman Sachs. CLSA, although, has downgraded the stock to underperform. And this quarter was better than expected despite, the Eugia Unit III disruption. So where do you stand on that?
I think Eugia Unit III OIA is definitely a setback. It is their largest plant. They have very large dependence. While OIA doesn't really impact the business should continue as it is. Sales should kind of continue. Only issue is Aurobindo used to be at 400 rupees at a point in time, some time back, and now it's at 1,200 plus. So we have seen a lot of run up in the stock. The most imminent trigger for the company is their PenG facility, the penicillin G facility that they are commercializing. So how large and profitable this PenG business can be for Aurobindo is something that's going to drive their near to medium term earnings. Post the PenG facility, I think the biosimilar business is what's going to drive growth for them. So both these there are set of uncertainties because PenG is something which is currently being imported from the China, and we don't know if China will drop prices, and maybe this can impact Aurobindo's profitability in the product. While on the biosimilars front, competition is the most important aspect. How that shapes up when Aurobindo launches their biosimilars on the market. So there are uncertainties. Valuations have kind of run up. So we don't have as much comfort as we used to have at lower levels.
Oh, okay. Any chance you've looked at Divi's?
Yeah, Divi's earnings were quite strong. Q4 was quite strong, above expectations. I think primarily led by their custom synthesis business. And again, custom synthesis was led by the contrast media business that they have recently initiated. So about a year since they have initiated the contrast media contract manufacturing. I think so. For the quarter, they did beat the estimates, but if you look at the full year consensus estimates, they were much lower. The challenge that Divi's is facing is their generic business is not growing the way it was growing in the past. So there's a bit of struggle on the generic business. Custom synthesis business is doing well, but I think there are challenges too in the custom synthesis side. One of the large drugs that Divi's is manufacturing might see patent expiry this year. And if that happens, I think the custom synthesis business growth could also get challenged. So we have a sell rating there with a price target multiple of 30 times on FY26. Our target price is about 2,600, close to that.
With nearly all the results out right now for the pharmaceutical space, anything that stood out for you in particular, and anything that disappointed you the most, if you could give us both?
I think gross margins are shaping up well across the board. So I think all companies have kind of seen an improvement in gross margins. And everybody has called out lower raw material costs helping them in the process. While the commentary around the US is similar, they say price erosion is still there, although it has stabilized. It's not getting worse. So just that the raw material thing is something that has come up positively in this quarter.
I meant stock specific. Is there any stock in particular which you had revised your estimates the most by?
I think cipla is where we kind of have turned positive post the earnings call. So that's where I think so our rationale for turning positive on cipla was the announcement of a plant in China that they have started. It's a plant to manufacture Pulmicort rescues, which is a difficult to make product. I think they'll start supplying to the US, but there is also a very large opportunity in China for the same category. And it's a product very difficult to manufacture. I'm not sure whether Chinese companies can do that. There would be very limited set of companies who could do that. So I think this can open doors for cipla in China. So that's where I think we have turned positive and are hopeful about.
Interestingly, it's not the first company that is looking to venture into China. Gland has a presence there. Cipla is looking to do that. Aurobindo also has a plant which is coming up in China. But just before we let you go, there was news about more competition in albuterol, which would impact both lupin as well as cipla. How significant a piece of news do you think that is? Or do you think it's factored in considering that, it's par for course?
Yeah, so albuterol is an important drug for cipla lupin. And this additional competition is going to impact numbers. But a part of it was, I think, into the forecast because at least we have been factoring a 10 to 15% decline every year for albuterol. But if you look at cipla, this piece of negative news was offset by a positive news. They got approval for a generic version of lanreotide. So they already have an approval for lanreotide, but the one that they have is for a NDA and not an ANDA. ANDA is basically a substitutable version of lanreotide. So I think that should help them ramp up share in this product, and it should more than offset the negative impact on albuterol. And again, this was not factored into the numbers, generic version of lanreotide.
Okay, all right. Well, more to discuss, but we've run out of time, Vishal. Thanks very much for joining in and speaking with us and giving us all of that perspective on the pharmaceutical space, which has really been the sector of the last couple of days, considering that a lot of the numbers have been bunched up. Well, we need to take a short break, more on the markets, and later we'll focus on Sumitomo Chemicals and Nalco as well. Stay tuned.